Your settings, if they are set appropriate, you should see 4 video monitors on the screen and 1 PowerPoint presentation to our side. So far, we have 14 attendees. And it's showtime. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Thank you for attending our 5th webinar relating to STEM education. I'm really glad you folks could be here tonight with our current unfortunate pandemic going on in the world. It seems that remote learning is good practice for us all to have frequently, because we might be using it in our near future for the next couple of weeks or months. We have no idea. Before we dive right in, I want to make sure that folks in the audience do have their settings set appropriately so they can enjoy tonight's program. We have voice interpreters present. We have captioning service present, so you can turn your audio on to hear the spoken English via the interpreters. The captions should show at the bottom of your Zoom screen. There is a panel that says participants, Q&A, share, chat. Then there's one that says CC, closed captions. You can go ahead and click on that icon and you'll have a couple options, and it can show completely on the screen. It can show compressed. There's multiple options and settings that you folks can feel completely comfortable setting to your desire. Now, if there is any technical issue for you, please go ahead and click into the chat box and type in your question. CSD Learns has a support team here that is ready to attend to your needs. Now, you do have to make sure that your Zoom software is updated in order for it to function and work properly. And the program is best viewed via a computer or a desktop or a laptop, and not as well on a phone or a tablet. Now, you also have the option of sliding the screen back and forth to either make the video panelist a larger size or to make the PowerPoint a larger size. And the way you do that is by clicking on the 2 thin lines between the PowerPoint and the video presenters and just dragging that to the left or to the right to resize your screen. Again, any problems, issues, or concerns, please type into the chat box any issues seeing the video panelists for tonight. Ask away, and we do have CSD's support team here ready to provide that support. And as we move along in tonight's discussion with the panel, and perhaps you have a question come to mind, type that into our Q&A box. That is a question and answer box. I will be monitoring that box during our conversation, and when I feel it's appropriate, I will go ahead and pick out a question and ask it to our panelists. Today's topic is deaf and hard of hearing people of color in STEM. We're going to talk about your life experiences, how you became involved in STEM, and whether you had any educators that were also PSC perhaps and made you interested to further on pursue a career in STEM. Now, the reason we have this topic tonight, people of color in STEM, is because there is still a heavy presence of white middle-class men in the STEM field. And there are smaller numbers of people of color, which are increasing, but there is still disparity. And so we're here to have a conversation and discussion tonight on brainstorming and coming in with possible solutions, and have a sharing of ideas from people of a shared culture or background. Although we are all different, we can come together and put our ideas together and create things that we didn't know or think were possible. Plus, with people of color in the STEM field, then any deaf youth who look towards the STEM field can identify with that representation. I'll introduce us all. I'm Scott Cohen. This is my sign here. I am a doctoral student in science education at Georgia State University. I'm in my 3rd year now. I'm almost completed, and I'll start doing my research pretty soon. My focus is on deaf and hard of hearing students' learning experience with the sciences. I'll go ahead and introduce our panelists now. So you'll say your name sign, where you're at currently, and an interesting fact if you'd like to throw that out. We'll go ahead and start with Joe.
Hello, everyone. I'm Joe Ben Pong. I was born and raised in Dallas, Texas. I'm currently living in Dallas still, and I work as a software engineer for a company called Texas Instruments. Oh, yes, an interesting fact about myself, yes. I am deaf, and my brothers and sisters are all deaf as well. All my family is deaf.
Thank you so much for that, Joe. Thank you. And now we'll pass it along to Miriam.
Hello, everyone. My name is Miriam Pirata. Here's my sign name. I grew up in Massachusetts and moved to Rochester. I've been working at the University of Rochester researching pharmacy. An interesting fact about me is I was born deaf and got a cochlear implant. I grew up oral speaking with friends and family. And one day I saw a deaf person signing. To my surprise, I dove right in, learned sign language I've been learning it for the past few years.
Miriam, thank you so much for that. And now we'll pass it along to Franley. Hi, I'm Franley. There's no K in there. It's just Franley. This is my sign name. My last name is Zulerio, and I'm here in Massachusetts. And I work as a bioengineering lab technician at a small university. An interesting fact is that I actually know how to sew with a needle and thread. And I can stitch stuff and repair stuff. I do it as a hobby. One time I took apart an old analog TV. I took it apart and put it back together. Just everyday stuff. That's it for me. This is Scott. Thank you so much, Franley. You're somewhat of a MacGyver is what you're saying, right? I am. I noticed you said you took something apart. Yeah. And this is Scott speaking. Well, thank you again. You can see also in the PowerPoint slide, there's a team of 4 in lavender shirts. That is CSD's Learn Support Team. They have been working hard to put this webinar together, so we want to express our gratitude to the CSD Learns team, working hard in the background. Thank you, team. And this is Scott speaking. I also want to recognize General Motors for their contribution and support in order to make tonight's webinar possible. So big thank you to you as well, General Motors. Okay, so we're all ready. This is Friendly. That's right, Scott, we're ready.
Miriam says I'm ready. Joe says I'm ready.
Okay, first topic for tonight. We're going to talk about your journey, your childhood experience. So as you reflect on your childhood, what was your STEM learning experience like, right? And I'll go ahead and start with Joe. Take it away.
This is Joe. Okay, my journey through my K through 12 education was really, from my perspective at that time, it was the late 90s, early 2000s, and the STEM field was really not popular. It really wasn't a big thing yet. So really, I had late exposure to it, in my opinion. I did basic coding starting with MySpace. Some of you are probably
Yeah.
familiar, same idea as Facebook, but you were able to design your page and make it really pretty. And
This is
that
friendly.
is when I
Yeah.
realized code was not for me. But I did not fully understand what coding involved. Through middle school, I just dropped that, forgot all about it. And then in my senior year of high school, they provided an after-school robotics program. It was an informal thing. It wasn't actually building any type of mechanics. We just had a small kit that we'd put together with blocks. But in that moment, I looked back to my time designing my MySpace page, and I finally got the understanding of what STEM was in the full gamut of STEM. And I feel like that was a late realization for me, yet, better late than never.
Hmm.
Growing up, I never really had any kind of vision of the STEM field because I didn't know about it. Growing up, I wanted to be an artist. As a Black deaf woman, I knew the options out there were limited. And so I wanted to become an artist. And then once I learned about the STEM field, I dove right in, and that I've been very happy with it so far. Did I answer that well?
Joe, yes, you did. Thank you so much. STEM itself as a word didn't become too common until the late 2000s, right? Uh, and I think the idea probably was birthed around the 90s, but it really wasn't used much till the end of this last decade. Yeah.
It was slow growing, yeah. This
Miriam.
is Miriam. Well, my story is a little bit different than Joe. I was born in Pakistan from a very large family and struggled to find access as a deaf person. Yet my family knew that I could have better access in America. So I moved and went to an oral program in school, which was very difficult um, for me to get a grasp of. But sciences was something I really had a great handle on. I dove into sciences and math, and my learning grew. Then through high school, I envisioned going into biochemistry. I knew I wanted to go to school majoring in biochemistry. And then I did that, and I went on to work in a lab after my schooling. But then really I got bored working in the lab. I figured, if I was to work to find the cure, what actually would that cure be doing out in the world? I wanted that real life experience. So I went on to get my doctorate degree, my PhD in pharmacy. I'm a doc. I have my doctorate in pharmacy, and that was a long, slow process, very tough. But then I finally uh, received that 2 years ago. That was quite inspiring for me because my brothers and sisters have always been in the math and science fields, and I've looked up to them. I've always wanted to be the same as them. And this is something that, English didn't have to be a part of. I didn't want to write. I knew I didn't want to act. I was very shy growing up. And when I grew up learning to speak, I felt I had no identity. Came to America.
This is Scott. Let me back up. Okay. So you looked up to your siblings. They're also in the math career. And you were shy, so you didn't want to be a performer, right? I caught that. So yes, so start from that point on.
I think that pretty much sums it up. We can let the next person speak.
This is Scott. Thank you for that, Miriam. Okay, our next person is Franly. Go ahead, Franly. Sure, my journey begins with, I wasn't really aware with science on its own. But in school, I think about kindergarten to sixth grade, I didn't have an understanding of what science was. But what I did enjoy most is in fifth grade, they taught us about the solar system. That was fifth grade. My jaw dropped, right? I really enjoyed the activities around that. And then in sixth, I don't remember too much. And then I do remember another solar system lesson. It was a little redundant. But they presented the moon first, and they talked about moon rocks. And then they had a NASA model. And I was really attracted to it, but I didn't understand it. Eighth grade was different. Eighth grade, they really talked about science. And it was a book called How to Eat Fried Worms. Not sure if you folks here are familiar with it. No,
No.
it's a kid's book. where I think over the course of a week, the kids got to eat worms, out of the ground, out of the earth. It's got to eat them. So we did a science experiment based on that book. And I had some motivation, but I was young and I decided at that time that I wanted to be a veterinarian, 8th grade, right? I said, yeah, I'm going to take care of animals. I enjoyed it. I imagined I'd interact with all sorts of animals, and I thought that's the career for me. But when I got to high school, I got a little frustrated with biology and chemistry, and I understood it. The light went on, and I hadn't identified a career at that point yet. I still had a veterinarian in my mind. I thought being a doctor for animals would be the greatest thing on earth, right? They had vet techs. I wasn't too science focused yet, but still in high school, I don't remember if it was sophomore year or what, but I did really good in my science class. And so that teacher gave me another book to further spark my interest. And so that particular teacher was female POC. And I had a very great relationship with her. And so after I finished that book, she gave me more books, and I kept reading those books. And I liked science so much, I didn't realize that those books were enhancing my vocabulary. I really liked the sciences. Nothing else grabbed my attention quite like that. And so that was a big part of my journey. This is Scott Franley. Thank you so much for that. Now, before I get going, I'm going to go ahead and reintroduce all the presenters here, your names and your name signs. It seems the audience wasn't able to see us earlier. Joe, will you raise your hand, Joe? Okay, so.
Right here.
Yep, that's Joe. Just raised your hand. And then we also are joined by Miriam.
Right here.
And we've got Franley, which is Franley's name sign right here. Hi, yo, it's Franley. And this is Scott. Okay, moving on now. I've noticed in your comments, Miriam, you mentioned your siblings being in science and math careers. Franley, you had a teacher. You said it was your freshman year, right? Sophomore, freshman? Freshman, yes. Okay. You had a freshman year. You had a teacher encourage you. And Joe, I didn't notice anyone really there to motivate you, right?
There really wasn't anyone, no.
Well, you had MySpace, Joe. And this
no, is not people, though.
Right. This is Scott. Yeah, I was asking about people, Franley. But yes, so besides those inspirations, do you have anyone else that inspired you, or anyone else that motivated you to be persistent and roll up your sleeves and really stick to STEM? And we'll go ahead and start with Miriam.
This is Miriam. Okay, well, when I went to the oral college, one of my professors, who was also my professor of math in my math class, took notice of me and saw that I was, excelling in the class. There were 5 other deaf students in the class that were struggling, but I wasn't. And my instructor thought, how did you move here from Pakistan? How did you're learning everything and picking it up so quickly? And I always would ask questions. Whenever my science teacher would be presenting or lecturing, I would always raise my hand to ask another question, and I'd always be told to wait until later, but that's how I learn the best, is by asking questions as we go. But I would also stay after school and get extra help. And through that, I started to be able to predict what types of questions would be on the test, because I knew what was important. That was the material that was impressed after school. So really, I just dove in and I did really well with science.
Well, thank you so much for that, Miriam. Franley, take it away. Scott, what was the question again? Okay. Besides having a teacher who inspired you, was there anyone else that motivated you to persist in the STEM field? Scott, no. No, there wasn't anyone else, just that one teacher. Not until my college years. I can say no one else until that point. I didn't have anyone really motivate me or encourage me. And I know that there was a tutor I do remember that encouraged me to become a teacher in the science field. But that was during my college years. I didn't have any of that during my K to 12 years. Wow, Frownley, I find that very interesting. Joe, I'll ask you the same question.
K through 12, I did not have any role models. I was mainstreamed public school. I took a lot of gifted or AP, advanced placement classes.
Mhm.
And so often in my class, I was isolated. I didn't have any kind of socialization or exposure with others. So I did not have much um, in that way, but I did know that I was really good at technology and math. But really, who I could attribute to my education was my parents. My parents from Africa moved to America. They knew that the education system in Africa was not on par, was not as good in America. So moving to America, they pushed us hard in our education. They really rooted for our success.
And this is Scott speaking. Joe, so your parents' focus was your education. No matter what career you chose, you just happened to choose STEM.
That's right.
Wow. Franny, you have a comment? Yeah, Scott. When it comes to parents, right? When my mom found out I was interested in an event, she would pursue it. And then she kept pushing me to get that education. When she found out I was interested to becoming a vet. And so she kept pushing me and she had me continue. So she is someone else who inspired me to continue and move on to higher education. Okay, so I want to say what I captured from the message is you had a couple folks outside of the STEM field, your family as support. And research shows that people of color derive their inspiration not from the field itself, but from outside of STEM, from friends and family who provide that encouragement. So this kind of just lines up with that, and it makes a lot of sense. So why don't we move along to our next question?
This is Joe. I just saw in the chat someone says they have a question for me, but
I don't see the questions there. The questions so far had been in regards to the tech issues, but those tech issues have been resolved. No, wait a minute. I see that now, Joe. It says, I want to ask a question for Joe. Where are you from? It asks.
Should I go ahead and answer?
Yeah, Joe.
Okay. Thank you for that question. My parents are from Africa, from Ghana, West Africa, and they moved to Dallas, Texas. That's where I was born and raised, along with my twin sister and my older brother and sister. The four of us were born here in Dallas, Texas.
Thank you for that, Joe. Thank you very much. And this is Scott speaking still. So we've talked about our journey, your journeys, and what immersed you in STEM. Now let me ask you, how did you prepare yourself for STEM? Was it people you worked with? Did you have to build a reputation? You eventually had to apply for jobs in the STEM field, correct? So I'll start with Franley. Go ahead, Franley. And this is Franley speaking. In my college years, well, why don't I give you some background? My senior year, I didn't have the concept of what college was. Now, we did have a college prep class in high school in DC. And they asked me what I wanted to do. I mentioned I wanted to be a vet. And so they showed me how to apply to those colleges. I sent my applications. Obviously, I chose RIT. I applied there. I got accepted. But I didn't realize it was a different career. It was a different program. It was a lab technician program. And so they prepared folks there for lab tech jobs, which ended up being a fit. I took the courses, I progressed, and the skills that I had were outside of STEM because STEM, there's a lot of working together, there's a lot of cooperation, there's a lot of science principles, and so those have been incorporated into my studies, and I'm grateful for that. But my other skills that are non-STEM related, I would consider those soft skills, whether how you agree or disagree with someone, how you make the team function, how you get the team to complete projects, programs, to check in and monitor progress. All of those skills also apply in STEM, so one has to prepare that. But back to the application portion of it, uh, before sending applications, one can develop relationships or contacts at like a job center. And so also being an intern, getting that assistance at a job center. Sometimes you can get an internship in a different field. And sometimes that's worth your time because you have an understanding of that field, but still it prepares you to work in the STEM field. But I think regardless of the field, those are the things necessary to prepare to be in STEM. This is Scott. Thank you so much, Franley. You know what? You mentioned an internship there, I noticed. And a lot of people look for internships that are in their field, but you just gave advice different to that. You said gain some experience. I did say that, Scott. Yeah, and sometimes people might realize and be fascinated that this whole different field might be more appealing than what they've chosen, right? Joe, take it away.
My experience with preparing for STEM work, I'd say in the last 2 years, my junior and senior year, they had an after-school robotics program that I already mentioned. And with that, I knew I wanted to code, to be a coder for a living. I thought about that. And then in my senior year, I was planning for college, preparing, looking at different majors, and I saw computer science. And I thought, what was that? I did some research and I realized that was coding. And in my mind, I envisioned getting a 4-year college education and then obtaining a good job after that. So I sent off my college applications within Texas because my family lives in Texas. I thought it'd be easier just to stay here within Texas. I sent an application to RIT, but then I ended up getting accepted at UTA.
Say that again. What is UTA?
Oh, thank you for the reminder. UTA is University of Texas in Arlington.
That near Dallas, right?
Yes, it's near Dallas. I wanted to stay close to family. So after 1 year there, I was satisfied with my courses, but I wanted something more hands-on. I wanted to actually implement and do the mechanics. Also, the deaf community there was not that large. I grew up mainstreamed, and deaf people really value hands-on experience. I wanted to experience more outside of my deaf family, and so I applied again. The first time RIT accepted me, and I preferred Texas over RIT, but then I decided to go ahead and apply again. They accepted me a second time. I moved there and changed my degree to computer engineering, my major, that is. So I have computer science with electrical engineering, both integrated, and that's a perfect fit for me. So speaking of internships, Franley, internships were extremely important to me. I actually had 4. The fourth one, I was offered a job from, and I went to work. I graduated with my Bachelor of Science and my Master's of Science degree in computer engineering. And the reason why I included the Master's of Science so I could be ready to work, and I just knew that I'd be prepared, even though in the back of my mind I do think about a PhD. However, going to work was great, having this double degree. And then I went straight from graduation to work at Texas Instruments. TI is the abbreviation.
Right. I saw that. TI, Texas Instruments. Yeah.
And that's where I've been for about 1.5 years now. That's my journey, pretty much.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you. Thank you so much. And now we'll turn it over to Miriam.
All right. The question is, how did I prepare myself for the STEM field? As I just said, I felt like I had a real good social support. So I had my siblings who helped me. They all knew math and science really well. They helped me in that respect. Also, I did well in my science and math courses in high school. And also in high school, I took AP classes, if you've all heard of them, advanced placement.
Joe mentioned that, yeah.
Yes, so I took advanced placement courses, and then my high school advisor encouraged me to major in biochemistry because I was doing so well in all of those related courses. So I looked for colleges, sent out my application, some in New York, some close to home. My parents preferred that I stay close to home. It's based on our religion. So in New York, I had a full ride a full scholarship.
Mm.
And that was at SUNY, SUNY. I really wanted to go there, but my parents would not allow me to go. They wanted me to stay close to home. I could not live in a dorm. So I went ahead and went to the University of Massachusetts, got my biochem degree. There I met 2 or 3 really good friends. They're all hearing, but we're all in the same courses. We would exchange notes. And at that time, I actually did not have a sign language interpreter or CART. So we would exchange notes with one another. And then in my senior year, I decided to go on to pharmacy school.
Senior year, okay.
Yes, I went to pharmacy school, and in that I was sad. I felt really disconnected from people. So I decided to just apply for something for fun. I thought I wasn't going to get in, but the 3 of us actually got the same interview on the same day. And one of my friends got in, and I got in, which was a complete surprise to me. I had no experience, no training, and I was admitted. I just came in, said, hello, my name is Miriam. I work in a lab. Here's my experience. I'm interested in pharmaceuticals and what happens within the greater market. And the question they asked is, how are you prepared? How have you prepared yourself to do so well as a deaf student? And I said, I don't need it. I never needed an interpreter. I relied on note taking and CART. So then when I went into the school, I was honest. I'll have to be honest with you. I failed my first year. I realized I was wrong. I did need to ask for these types of support. I needed an interpreter. But then the second year, I did better. I just progressed and did better and better with the proper accommodations. And I understood then I need to prepare myself with the correct resources. And I need to be able to ask for what I need. So once I completed my pharmacy schooling, I worked in a pharmacy at Walgreens. And that's where I got my real life experience. I had patients that I dealt with and worked with. After working there for a year, I decided to focus more on research and not the practice, working within healthcare. I decided I'd put that on hold for a while and work on research. I found a really great university. And now that's where I am, here in Rochester.
This is Scott. Thank you so much, Miriam. Thank you. And now next, well, unless anyone wants to make another comment, it look like Franley? Yeah, this is Franley, Scott. I want to mention how critical those AP advanced placement classes are. I myself took those courses. And a lot of times people think, oh, wow, that means you're really smart and you're going to get A's. But those were the classes that actually helped me prepare for my college days. They gave me that experience, that high stress, quick paced environment, that tough environment. And the pacing is just so quick, and my culture is different. It takes time for me to invest that time to learn and study the material, but AP moves so quickly. So it didn't feel like the best fit for me. I think I took one AP class, but I didn't test in that one. But I did want the experience of what an AP class was like. And I think it's very critical for students to see that. If you're a deaf student of color, you're going to want to take that, right? But people aren't interested in that. Forget about that disinterest. Forget about the testing. Give yourself that flexibility and expose yourself to that. I did. I think I took, if I remember correctly, 1 or 2 AP tests. One was an English test, and the other was U.S. history. They weren't STEM related, but again, I got that experience of that environment. I got that exposure to the dynamics of that type of course. And I think I did well in college because of the AP classes. Also, during high school, I had a teacher invite me to an internship before I went to college. I was a part of a very basic, simple project for 6 weeks at a nearby university before I get into the university. You mean part of a research lab? Right, it was in Virginia. I think that lab is no longer in operation. But this is, again, way back when I was just out of high school. That teacher was there. I think it was myself and 2 other students. And we had about 3 sessions. And so I think I was part of the second or third group with that teacher. That really doesn't matter, but I had an intern program just out of between high school and college for 6 weeks, and I got paid, and it helped quite a bit. This is Scott. So then the three of you have had exposure to AP courses, and you've had experience as interns, and so that helped prepare you for your work in the STEM field, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
indeed.
yeah. Okay, this is Scott. So next question. As you entered the STEM field, uh, did you feel represented? And if so or if not, how did that make you feel? Joe, we'll start with you.
Just to clarify, do you mean in general or related to K through 12?
No, I mean more in the career field already working.
Okay, in the career field, including my college education or my current job right now?
Yeah,
College.
college education.
Okay,
Yeah.
college, got it. So at RIT, RIT is a popular school for technology. The whole world they bring students from the whole world, so there's diversity. Nationalities are represented there, very diverse. Although it was mostly white, I have to admit. Um, although just last month, a new person joined my team who's from Ghana and has a degree in computer engineering as well. That's the first time I really made a connection with someone and clicked with someone. All that time, all that waiting, though, I feel was worth it.
It's confirmed, right? It's been confirmed
Oh,
now.
yeah.
Worth it.
Yeah, that sense of connection. I finally have that. And so I think that diversity experience depends on where you go, really.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Joe. Miriam?
This is Miriam. Well, I'll start with kindergarten through high school and actually into college because I think it's important to highlight some things. So starting in kindergarten, I was in an oral program, and that was right around 1990. There was just me and one other male student who was a person of color. Everyone, all of the rest of my classmates were white. This is in Massachusetts. And then all the way through my years, as I got older into high school, there were more and more people of color, but the majority were white. And then at the University of Massachusetts, there was much more diversity, and RIT as well was really truly diverse, and that's where I was able to really make those important connections with other people, you know, where you feel like white people often are the dominant culture and race, and that they have maybe more power, but when you find other people who are like yourself, then there's more, it's easier to engage. We just say, hey, where are you from? Oh, you're from Pakistan as well. And you just go from there. So I really think that there is more diversity that I'm seeing, of course, now compared to the past. And there's more diversity in my environment currently.
Continue.
I also want to say that people really, that experience with people motivated me to work harder. If everyone was the same as me, I don't think I would have had that true motivation, and I wouldn't have seen myself.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Miriam. Thank you. And that's why you mentioned your family. Your family's what helped you persist and continue in that field.
Yes.
Some people, even despite not seeing any representation, they persist. Does that happen to you folks here? Right? Some of us just persist. And you're right. The field is becoming more and more diverse. Again, because the younger age group is coming into the field and the older age group progresses out. So we are seeing some increase in numbers of POC. Franley? Right, Scott. In high school, let me think. I was first exposed to white people, and this is a sign I use kind of brushing along my cheek. I was first exposed to white people, and I saw large numbers of them at school. K through 12, the whole school that I went to was a very international school. I grew up at a deaf school, and there was all sorts of folks there, but I do remember seeing white folks kind of threw my head back. I was a little surprised. Now, in the field of science, I don't know if you remember, I mentioned that when I was in seventh grade, in one of my classes, I did have a PLC teacher there. Uh, but later on, when I got to college, I noticed that yes, college was diverse, but the science education curriculum had erased identities. And it focuses on just the skills, the math concepts, the science concepts, and it erases identities. And so everyone feels their competition to get A's and above, nothing lower. No C's and D's, so it's tough there. And so everyone there is having that experience, whether POC or not. And so if you have a lower grade, right, maybe some of those folks in there have never had a lower grade, right, because they're afraid of what that means for them. So I think college puts a bigger emphasis on grades, and that was a big impression upon me. But at the same time, I talking to a lot of students, they have better grades than I do, the white students. And so, but I think it's because they were hyper represented and it seemed like there was more. It felt like perhaps it was oppressing. But when I got done with college and I was ready to work, there was, let me identify first, I am Afro-Latin. But when I had first started, I did meet someone who was identified as Black. And they would focus on different things. This one college professor, and so one day they focused on deafness, the other day on Blackness or being a male. And I remember having a course on intersectionality, and it was a topic almost on a daily basis. And so that exposed me to that thinking more. And so there are still a lot of white male in the engineering field, and there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, there's nice. However, sometimes erasing the identity can have an effect on a person if they're not aware of their identity. And so, but they have been a large group, and the career is what I've noticed. This is Scott. Thank you so much, Franley. Joe, it looks like you want to add to his comment.
This is Joe. Yes, Franley, you made me think of something. I did say that RIT is diverse, but most people I'd say are from the Middle East. And white and also male. So I am a Black female engineer, which means I have to work twice as hard, maybe 3 or 4 times as hard to compete. And I do not accept anything less than an A for myself because I have to show that I have the skill. Even though I know I have the skill, I have to always prove it so that I can be seen as an equal amongst my peers. So I feel I always have to work harder. And yes, it does have an effect. Miriam says, same here. I've had this exact same experience.
This is Scott. Yeah, actually research shows that people that aren't well represented in the STEM field, disabilities, minorities, have worked twice as hard, if not beyond that, beyond the skills of their white peers to be recognized. And so that is true.
Yes.
Now, yep, that leads me to our next question, folks. And here's the question. So, how does your experience help STEM educators working with students of color? So we'll go ahead and start with Miriam.
Okay. I have some advice for teachers. Please don't limit yourself in your teaching. Recognize students who have a desire or passion to become a STEMist. Help them and lead them in the right path that they should go, whether that be educational, so that they can get everything that they want and deserve. In my experience, I always raise my hand, and some professors would not answer my question. And I was simply curious. That's why I was raising my hand, but that curiosity has helped me succeed. So I was always raising my hand and asking questions. So please, when you see your students raise their hand, please answer their question.
Thank you, Miriam. Thank you. Franley. Scott, There's a lot, especially with white professors or teachers. They're important too. The concept of an ally or allyship isn't an easy concept. Uh, the curriculum needs a complete overhaul. Like, for example, the K through 12 system. They've got state testing, and quite often there's historical STEM characters, and there's historical STEM folks in history that are people of color. And so, for example, geometry, mathematical, there are a lot of people of color in the STEM fields that aren't credited in the K through 12 fields. There are also a lot of Black scientists in the field in our past that aren't credited as well. And so that's what I mean when I say the system needs an overhaul. We need a relative curriculum that introduces the concepts, whether they be math, STEM, or science, and introduces those to POCs via POCs as well. So that way when they're young and they can develop that interest as they reach the high school level and not be stuck by stereotypes as they see elsewhere, right? And so we need to inspire folks, and that would be the change that I think would cause that. And for the deaf youth, whether you think a class is hard or not, whether you think it's AP and whether you're going to be able to handle it or not, dive right in. Go ahead and take it. I suggest jump in. If you don't want to be in the STEM field, that's quite all right. Or if you delay yourself until you realize you want to be in the STEM field, which I did, right? I didn't find out till I was later in life. But what's important is make a plan. Have a plan and make small steps to work towards that plan. And that's how you'll achieve it. Friendly, thank you so much. You bring up a good point. We need to model and represent and have that representation. There's a psychological experiment that's going on. It's called Draw as a Scientist, or Draw a Scientist, that experiment. And so most people draw an older white man with glasses and a white lab coat, and sometimes they've got messy hair. Yeah. That's typically what everyone draws when they're asked to draw a scientist, right? So we need that representation, that image of what a scientist is or what a person in the STEM field is needs to change. Joe, your turn.
This is Joe. My advice is, yes, definitely representation. That word says it all. It is so important. In the STEM field, there's just not enough representation. I get that, but the importance of, your day job, what is it called? Your career day, right?
Yeah.
Or career, where you get exposed. Students can go and see various different, booths with different types of employment. You should have a person of color man that booth at a career fair, whether they're hearing or deaf. We know there's not enough deaf people. So have a woman, and if they're a person of color and deaf, all the better. And not just that, I'm sorry, I don't want to confuse terms. White, blue collar, but white collar is what again? Remind me.
Yeah, blue collar, white collar. This is Scott. Okay. White collar typically earns more than a blue collar person, right? Like a tech assistant would be a blue collar.
Okay.
Blue collar person gets dirty at work. How's that?
Thank you for clarifying.
White collar person, more administrative, more management.
Okay. So with a white collar job, most professors subconsciously think that white people are primed for that. So white collar jobs are just not a fit for a person of color. And so then people of color feel like they have to demote themselves to a pink color job like nursing or a female type profession. But we need to even the playing field. Regardless, all people are worthy of a white collar job, blue collar job, whatever they want, but recognize the skill set within each person. And yes, inclusiveness, we've already said that, and representation, same idea. Miriam talked about how she would raise her hand and some teachers would ignore her and not call on her. I do see that in a lot of cases. When I would visit mainstream classes, a lot of times a white teacher may not call on a student of color and they'll favor the white students, that is very dangerous, especially at a young age. That has a huge impact on these students, and they'll just learn not to raise their hand anymore. That's very dangerous to a child's psyche.
And this is Scott speaking. Joe, that's a very, very valid point. Teachers need to analyze their biases and see if they're being fair or not. Are they teaching fairly? Are they responding fairly? Right? Are they maybe responding very vaguely to one student and in depth to another student? Do they have different approaches for different folks?
Right. It's not always conscious. It's often subconscious, but it's something teachers need to take note of and be aware and fix it and say, oh, I'm sorry. Did you want to say something else, Franley? I'm sorry. I didn't want to interrupt you.
Go ahead, Franley. Yeah, this is Franley. Another thought I had for K-12 teachers. That thought eludes me. I'm sorry. I just lost it. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Miriam saying, I have something though.
Go for it, Miriam.
I think that teachers just don't know how to communicate with people of color, maybe. That could be it. And so, maybe coming from Pakistan, they would realize that maybe they just had to show me something, and maybe they could take that learning and how to engage with me and use that with other students. And because it was really easy for me to learn and remember concepts, and so I was used as a model oftentimes because of that. So let teachers should also accept their students and help them to kind of teach back to the group as well.
Thank you, Miriam. Franley. Yeah, I had another thought come up. You had asked earlier what impressed me about STEM. And I remember a teacher looking at the signs we use, and now we are familiar with Black ASL. So any teachers that are out there, in case they see signs that aren't clear, of course you want to clarify a sign, but sometimes someone has a culture to their signing, and if it's clear, support them and help them expand their knowledge, because and have their foundation stay intact. Because quite often teachers say, oh, you're signing wrong. And maybe they don't want to support that student because they have a bias, because they see someone else who signs clearly and fluidly, and they assume they're intelligent and they want to have a better relationship with that student. And of course, all kids have different accents, different signing styles. Maybe someone can hang out with a certain group of friends and sign a certain way, and maybe those friends aren't white. And maybe they haven't interacted with the white social group before. And so the white group, in a position of authority as an educator, comes and says, you're signing wrong. And then that creates barriers. So I think it's very important for a teacher to be conscious about the different styles of signing that exist and be able to respect those. This is Scott. Franley, that issue also applies to hearing people as well, right? You have POC students in the class and the way they talk, because culture can also be different. But it's important to focus on the content, for teachers to focus on the content and content delivery, and getting those concepts across, and validate that the information is important, right? Or not, through communication instead of criticism. That's a good point to make out, Franley. Joe, you want to add something as well?
This is Joe. I have a few more pieces of advice, but one thing I thought of is within groups, often teachers will split their class into group and then they will have them group by race. I think you definitely have to diversify groups, because in life you're going to work with diverse groups of people. You can't segregate. So it's great to start that early and make sure you have diversity even within groups that are broken up within a classroom.
Joe, you make a very good point. Again, and that goes back to teachers analyzing their own bias and their approach to students. Okay, I do see some questions populating. Let me check in and see what they are. Okay, somebody is asking if there is a sign for STEM. Do any of you here know a sign for STEM? And this is Scott. I've seen this sign in Europe for STEM. Some folks here in the United States have started using that sign. And I'm curious if anyone else here has seen that sign before.
No, Miriam saying, I've seen one. from Alicia, who's a teacher that works at Gallaudet, an
Atomic
instructor.
hands, atomic hands, yes.
Yes, atomic cans. Yeah, I've seen that one.
This is trying to, oh, wow. And this is Scott. Yeah, I've seen atomic hands use that sign. Joe, have you seen that sign?
Joe's saying no, but I think STEM is already an acronym, so it's just easy to spell out. S stands, each letter represents something, so it's just easy to use the acronym, in my opinion.
And this is friendly. Yeah, I've seen that sign before. I've seen it here and there. I've seen it a couple times. But I've also heard so many deaf use STEM. And then there's a particular gentleman, one Latin man, who has established a STEM nonprofit organization. And the way I found out about him is through a competition at NAD, which is the National Association for the Deaf Youth Ambassador Program, the YAP. There's a competition there in STEM to encourage folks, school students, to reduce their dropping out of the STEM programs. And so without those competitions, and there's no data, and that data does exist for hearing students. And so this is something that this particular gentleman is working on, and has that, again, nonprofit organization, and is starting to, through this, collect data on that. So it's a good start. I don't know if I've seen the sign used anywhere else, but yeah. And this is Scott. Thank you for that, Franley. I see a comment. Well, in regards to research, this is Scott. Again, comparison, deaf and hearing. For deaf POC, there really is no research focused on deaf POC in STEM. There is a focus on hearing or deaf groups. But for POC hearing folks, there is plenty of research, not too much for deaf POC. And Joe, interesting that you mentioned white collar, blue collar level jobs there. There is, again, more data showing hearing and deaf statistics entering the STEM fields. I think deaf is at 15 and hearing at 17%. Now, most hearing folks are coming into the STEM field as white collar workers, right? Administrative, computer engineers, and so on, and those types of positions as they become open. And the deaf STEM graduates so far are doing trade jobs, blue collar jobs, hands-on jobs, welding, and stuff like that. So that was just another piece of data that I remembered, wanted to share with the folks here. One last question before we do wrap things up for tonight. We are being asked, how can we inspire teachers to introduce deaf STEM POC students to STEM without making a token out of them, right? So how can they introduce them to STEM and connect them with other STEM students? Joe, go ahead.
Joe's saying, I think at this point, without tokenism, it's impossible because there's just not enough of us in the field. We haven't had an early enough start. So later, as more and more people join the mix, there will be less tokenism, but we can't avoid it now. So you just have to go with it, I guess.
Joe, that's a good response. Miriam, Friendly, would you like to add anything to that?
Miriam saying, yeah, maybe speak with the professor or teacher privately and help them feel comfortable. Like I said, when I was young, I was very shy. I would ask the teacher, try to ask a question. If they didn't answer my question or wouldn't call on me, I would just, stay quiet. But then I'd stay after school and ask those questions that I wanted. And I just built that confidence. At first, I wasn't confident. And that grew. And I knew also I got to know the teacher by meeting with them one-on-one. And so I wasn't afraid to ask questions and make mistakes.
Thank you, Miriam. Developing a relationship is key. And then Joe, with more folks, there'll be less tokenism. I get that. Friendly. Well, if your goal is to identify tokenism in STEM, it's going to be difficult because I have so far visited, typically sometimes there's another agenda, right? Quite often, a person might know or not know when they're hired. And if they know and they're motivated and they have goals and they have a plan, that's fantastic. And then you've got to see how that person's going to work with the team. That's a whole different story. Sometimes a POC is hired without a real strong agenda as to how they're going to integrate into the team. So there's different situations. You have to assess your situation and understand how you're working into the team. My experience in the college, it's kind of standard diversity committees. There's black and brown lunch groups. And I think more eyes are on the committees to find those POCs, folks. And again, this is just my opinion. It's just my thought. The committees seem to be a result of the system. And the system wants to continue operating with those committees. But those committees sometimes need someone higher up to welcome them into the system to make those changes so that we can meet those goals and reach those points. But again, always, you've got to gauge your situation as you go. This is Scott. Thank you all so much. We do have to wrap up. Okay, these are a couple websites on our resource PowerPoint slide there with information on opportunities for POC to have learning, statistics on POC, like Miriam had said, after-school program. Like Franley had said, you were given books to read. This is just a bit of the information that exists out there. There are tons more resources. And this is Scott still. I encourage you to become a member do that, because professional organizations tend to offer courses, resources, and materials that can also be used to apply to students. So you can update your practices by joining professional organizations. And then we have more resources and materials related to science and ASL, STEM really. They are in sign language, sometimes caption, with expansions on the various concepts. If you go ahead and look through those websites. And on this resource page, we have curriculum resources. These are modern, current, real-world programs. With course, everyone hemming and hawing and not knowing what they're going to do for online instruction. We've got some resources here that they can look to and share with their students. Again, I'd like to thank the audience and our panelists for participating in tonight's webinar. Amazing stories. Thank you for putting yourself out there. We did have some technical issues which caused us to run late just a bit. Our webinar does have a survey. Please fill that out. And I'd also like to share that the next webinar related to STEM education, deaf, hard of hearing practices, will be April 15th. And the topic is higher education. So those are people, let's say, for example, grad school level students, and we'll be getting their stories. Now, next week, March 23rd, and I don't remember if it's Monday or Tuesday, we will be sharing our STEM toolkit with everyone. CSD has been working really hard, producing many videos. Joe is a part of one of them. Yeah. And that toolkit will be releasing next week. It was going to release next month, but we scooted that date up because we realized that digital learning is critical at this time.
Yes, true.
Thumbs up, folks. Oh, Joe.
Just a brief last word. I want to give a word of advice for teachers. Please cultivate your students' imaginations. Keep their hope alive, please. That's the one last thing I wanted to say before we wrap this up.
Thank you for pointing that out, Joe. Thank you, Miriam. Keep raising your hand. I saw you put it up there. friendly, you're curious about AP courses, let's get students in them. No judgment on anyone. Again, thank you to our panel tonight. Thanks to our audience for being here. Everyone, please stay safe. Practice social distancing for a while. Thank you and good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.